After 18 years of existence, the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, is reaching maturity with the accession of 41 states and the assessment of 24 countries, with some completing 2 country reviews. Entrenched in Pan-Africanism, the APRM responds to Africa's desire to take charge of its future by defining its own priorities. With the vision of a well-governed Africa for the Africa we want, the APRM was conceptualized as a voluntary tool through which African countries will diagnose their governance strengths and weaknesses in the political governance, economic governance and management, corporate governance and sustainable socio-economic development, and commit to remedies to better these problems. The mechanism represents a new era in African politics, African solutions for African problems, in contrast to externally imposed one-size-fits-all answers.
As the African Peer Review Mechanism, which is the body of the African Union, our mandate is to promote democratic and political governance, economic governance, corporate governance, and socio-economic development on the African continent to achieve the goal of what we say and what we call under Agenda 2063, the Africa we want.
Le mécanisme a pour vocation d'évaluer la gouvernance. Bien sûr, comme vous le savez, l'adhésion est volontaire. Et ce caractère volontaire est très important. Il est un indicateur parce que ça se fait au niveau des chefs d'État, bien sûr, et de gouvernement. Cela veut dire que le leadership se soumet à une évaluation. Et ce qui est notable dans ce principe-là, c'est l'auto-évaluation. L'exercice commence par une auto-évaluation. Ce sont les citoyens du pays concernés eux-mêmes qui se posent et qui regardent ce qui se passe dans leur pays et qui évaluent la gouvernance à travers des indicateurs, bien sûr, et des normes qui sont codifiées, comme vous le savez, à travers un questionnaire très élaboré, qui est au standard universel.
The main issue about APRM as an autonomous body of the AU, and a very important one, is about governance, because good governance that the APRM has a responsibility as its core business to promote is actually a prerequisite, one, for economic growth in member countries and in the whole continent. But secondly, it's also a prerequisite for better socio-economic development of all the people of Africa per country. You destroy good governance in terms of values, in terms of principles that ensure that all the time governments in countries actually govern well, hence the name good governance.
Good governance for me would be social protection, ensured social protection, upward growth trajectories, not just GDP, because as we all know, GDP is not an indicator of human security, and the respect to the rule of law. So what the Constitution says stands. The Constitution mustn't be amended to fit elite interests. It must always be citizen-centric.
The APRM initiatives have transformed Africa's governance scenery over the last 17 years. Significant progress has been made on various fronts, including improved accountability and transparency, increased citizens' participation in monitoring development and governance trends, and increased budgetary allocation to key sectors such as infrastructure, agriculture, education, health, and security. The APRM is a tool for sharing experiences, reinforcing best practices, identifying deficiencies, and assessing capacity building needs necessary to foster policies, standards, and practices that lead to political stability, high economic growth, sustainable development, and accelerated sub-regional and continental economic integration.
APRM, it's a mirror. So when you look at yourself in a mirror and you see that you have a pimple, you don't break the mirror. You go and fix the pimple. So that's really the whole logic of the APRM. It's a mirror that presidents themselves agree on, that let's look at each other, but then they advise each other on peer basis, peer learning basis, and also on the basis of experience sharing.
But what usually, the way the process typically works first is that a country accedes to the mechanism, and then we help the country to set up systems, institutions, structures, processes, so that it's able to assess itself. And that the institution would be a focal point at the top, which is usually a minister of government, sort of the liaison at two levels. Liaison between the APRM at the national level and the government, and the APRM at the country level with the APRM at the continental level. Then you have, which is probably the most critical structure of the process, there is a national governing council or commission. Now, again, the idea is that the commission or council should be representative of society. So it has membership from government, from civil society, from the academy, from, in many cases, the legislature, the judiciary. You have youth, women. So the idea is that you have a body that is representative. And it is the National Governing Council that actually runs the process.
Over the years, the APRM process has been embedded and improved to better serve its role of being a tool for good governance in the continent. The first ever APRM strategic plan, covering the period 2016 to 2020, was approved at the extraordinary APR Forum meeting held in Nairobi in August 2016. It focused on the 3 R's program of restoration, reinvigoration, and renewal of the APRM. The 2020 to 2023 strategic plan is premised on the theme Governance as a Tool for Africa's Integration. This strategy builds on the achievements made under the strategic plan and focuses on positioning the APRM Secretariat as the AU reference point on governance.